Hello plant friends, my name is Victoria and you're watching Plantastics. I have literally almost all of my violets blooming right now, so I thought what time would be better than right now to show you all of them. So I'm going to start with the ones that are noids, also known as no ID. Basically that means that they didn't have any form of identification. And if you didn't know, you can't identify a violet based off of its appearance. And that is different than most plants simply because you can look at a peace lily and tell it's a peace lily. And the reason is because they want to give full credit to the person that hybridized that, because it can take as few as 5 generations or as many as 15 before they're getting the characteristics that they want in their violets. So this one is a very, very beautiful burgundy, and it has really dark leaves, and it's just so beautiful. Like, it's so pretty, and it is very prone to suckers. And suckers are basically these teeny tiny little baby plants that form, and when you separate them, they'll form their own little rosette, and they basically are their own plant once they have an established root system. So that is the burgundy, and it is in full bloom. I mean, it's got rows and rows. So this is my first no ID. And second is my monster, my everything, my knockout, drag out. People that don't even know what a violet is love this one. And it's a no ID. It has unusually dark foliage, and I love that about it. And it's also huge. It has a very established root system, and it's all of these that I'm showing you right now are standards, which means that they pretty much, you can keep them in this size pot and just do repots every year or two, and that's all they need. So there's different sizes of violets, and I'll probably do a video going in on that, but standards are pretty much, they're going to stay the same size throughout their life. I do have some younger standards, but they'll eventually be this size. So we're just going to take a look at this one. This one has been blooming for me for 3 months, which is a really long time, and it is just absolutely gorgeous. So I love this one, and this one's really unusual because it has a combination of double blooms and singles, which this one is all singles. And I think that with these no IDs that they were culled because they weren't showing consistent characteristics, or at least that's my best guess. I have no idea. But these no IDs, they came from Walmart. So you never know what you're gonna find. And they were like $5 a piece when I purchased them, which was before a lot of things have happened, so the price has probably gone up. Now, this is a great example of what the seasons can do in terms of basically showcasing different characteristics in a violet. So this one is more burgundy in the summer than it is in the winter. So temperatures can fluctuate, and that can also change the color of your blooms. These aren't two-toned, so you don't see a difference in their coloration, but this one is what we call a thumbprint, which in the summer you'll be able to see more. You can kind of see here, but in the middle of the petal it's a darker color, and then on the perimeter it's a different color. So it's almost like you took your thumb in ink and just put it in the middle of the petal. This one is my favorite because the leaves just look so healthy. Like, it's just beautiful. So that concludes my 3 blooming no IDs. I do have another no ID that just got finished blooming, and it is also a thumbprint. I really love the two-tone blooms, which you're going to see quite a few of next. So I recently was in 2022, got into the named varieties, and I did that because most of the big box stores around me have violets, but they're all no ID. And whenever I was trying to swap with people online, they really wanted me to swap a named variety for their named variety. So to get better swaps, I got some of these. So I have this one, which is Moss Top Base, and it does have some variegation on the leaves. And this is the best that I've seen it bloom. And the first time it's ever bloomed for me. So all of these that I'm fixing to show you, it's their very first time blooming. And this one is unique because it has a color on the perimeter of the leaves, whereas the two no IDs that I have the color in the center. So these are just beautiful. It has these very large blooms, like they're huge. So I'm going to compare them here, or maybe it would be better to compare them to these because they're singles as well. But you can just look, like these are almost 1.5 inches, an inch in perimeter, and these are kind of smaller. So these are gigantic flowers and they are just beautiful. So when you want a variety that's going to bloom more often, something you can consider is the variegation. So variegation is beautiful for us, but for the plant, it doesn't really serve a purpose. Variegation is basically spots in the leaves where there isn't any chlorophyll. So the plant isn't able to photosynthesize. So that's basically like dead space for the plant. It's like if you had solar panels, it would be spots where it's not able to convert the sun into energy for the plant. So this one's beautiful and it doesn't have much variegation. So the reason that I bring up variegation with blooming varieties is the more green you have, basically the less variegation you have, the more the plant is basically able to take up all that energy and send it into either new roots or new leaves or blooms. So the more variegation, sometimes the less likely it is to bloom. But of course that depends on a laundry list of other factors like your lighting, your feeding, or fertilizing, and your soil. So your conditions can affect it. Variegation alone will not cause the plant to bloom less. So this next one is honestly something that I had to have, and it is called Louisiana Lullaby. And it is absolutely beautiful because it has, and this bloom doesn't showcase it as much as the first one, but it has a dark purple. So it has this lavender color and then it has this dark purple around it, and it has these beautiful, lush and rich ruffles, and the blooms are just humongous. And when the first bloom opened, it took it literally 2 weeks to open, and I was just like, literally every day I'd take a picture of it and post it, and it was really nice whenever I finally got it to open because I had been waiting for so long. So that is Louisiana Lullaby. And this one, see, these are 2 different size pots. You can see that this one was a smaller, less mature plant when I purchased it. And honestly, it doesn't really matter because the plants are the same size. But when this one gets larger, I will move it to a pot this size. They do look, they're very close in size, but that's just a note. So you've got all the ruffles you could ever want. Literally all the ruffles you could want. I love ruffles. I love big blooms. Like, it's just something that I love. And I don't know what circumstances. Maybe the flowers knew I was going back to school and needed a little motivation when I come home each day, but every single one is blooming. If it's not blooming, it's got blooms forming. I have another variety that I left on a shelf in there, so I'm gonna go get it. This is the most recent bloom that I've had. That's a newer variety, and it's called King's Ransom, and I think that that's precious because it literally looks like gold in the center, and these flowers are just unreal. Like, they're just unreal. And as you can see, throughout the sides of the crown. I have all kinds of blooms. So it's just not going to bloom one flower. It's going to have multiple. And they're just so large and so beautiful. I love that it has little flecks of pink in there. I think that is beautiful. It's just a very lovely variety. This is called Midnight Waterfall, and then I have Gillian in the other room, which I'm going to go get because it's in a earlier stage of blooming, and I just wanted you to see what it looks like. So here is blooms. They're all forming. They're all coming through the leaves of the crown. And something that I'm going to make a video on is how sometimes you can repot in your crown. You don't have mites, you don't have thrips, you don't have any pests, you don't have really any fungus, but you can have some crown damage if you plant the pot, or if you place the plant too deep into the soil. You're just going to have some moisture in the crown, and it's just going to cause some stunted growth. So that's what's happening here with this variety, and that'll go away as it's progressing and kind of like growing itself out of the soil, kind of developing more of a neck, if you will. But it's just really interesting to note. So that's what it looks like. And every time something's about to bloom, it's like it sends up three. So you have this middle branch, and then you have the two branches on the sides. And that's what I have going on here. You really can't see this one that well because the contrast between the leaves isn't that great. This one's also got darker leaves, and I love that. And these, the like edges of the leaves can be different too. So this one has ruffled leaves, and this one has flat. So you can kind of see the difference there. So you can have all kinds of differences with no IDs or named varieties. Like the difference here, like this one has such darker leaves. I love how, just how green these are. Like, I really love the green leaves. I love the dark ones too because they're like super goth and whatnot. But yeah, so I'm gonna go get that other variety. Okay, so I'm back, and I just realized I have another standard that I didn't mention. So this is Gillian, and it will have the most beautiful, like they almost look like a snowball, like they're these huge fluffy ruffled blooms. They are going to be gorgeous. And I have many different suckers forming at the base, and this is just a lot earlier in the bloom development than Midnight Waterfall, and I just figured you would like to see that. So it's kind of difficult to show you, and I'll have to zoom in when I'm editing, but you have these tiny little blooms. They're right at the base. They're really close to the center, and they're also coming out of the sides. They're pretty much coming out everywhere, and I also have suckers. So a lot of times when your violets bloom, they're going to produce suckers, and honestly, just let them be. They want to be there, let them be there. Once the flowers are gone and it's a time that's appropriate for repotting, you can remove them, and that will be better timing. You don't want to remove suckers whenever a plant's blooming because you don't want to disturb the root system, because that root system is very busy absorbing all that energy. So this one almost looks like a peppermint type of a pattern on the petals, but it's purple instead of red. So I have, once again, it has decided it's not done. And I have blooms forming here. I have blooms forming all throughout the sides. This one's got quite a neck on it. If you can see, that's basically going to be, whenever you go to repot it, you just bury it a little bit further down. And all of these are self-watering wicking containers. Even this next one, which is a much smaller one. So this was literally a propagation that I purchased online. It only had 2 leaves, and it has come a long way. I love the variegation on this one. This one is Suncoast Lavender Silk. And when it blooms, it's going to be amazing. I really love ruffles. I love it so much. It's like almost like chiffon. It's nature's chiffon. So this plant has the cutest roots, and they're the most epiphytic ones I've ever seen. I'm going to show you some close-ups, and that's why this is what I want you to think of whenever you do pot your African violets. I want you to think of, you know, orchids and other epiphytes that you're probably more familiar with, because you don't really think of African violets as being epiphytic, but they are. And what that means is, in addition to like kind of like indirect light or patchy light, they need oxygen in their roots, so they will drown if their roots don't have aeration. Like these pots are really great because they have vents on the sides. They just do not do well. That's what I found. I had plants, and I've had African violets probably for 5 or 6 years, but the greatest success that I have had has been when I transitioned to these self-watering containers. And I think it's because they're vented on the side. They have all this room on the side to have air. Also, I have fans running, which you don't hear right now because I've turned them off, but I have them running pretty much throughout the day, and they like air. Something that they can have if they don't have ventilation is powdery mildew and whatnot. So you have ventilation, you have your light, you have your soil, which I don't use a ton of perlite in my soil. I basically use Miracle Grow. Whatever the percentage is in Miracle Grow is what I use in my African violets, which it's different apparently depending on where you are, what your Miracle Grow is like, but that's what I use, and it's not a super airy mix, and that works for me. It may not work for you, but it works for me. So that's what I like to do. And then just for funsies, I'm going to show you the two most absolute cutest violets that I have that actually have a rosette. I have like probably 6 micro minis that are propagating right now. It's too early to say which ones are going to make it and which are not, but I was really happy that these made it because they have such cool names. So on the right we have Hedgehog in the Fog, which is like the coolest thing ever to say. And then on the left here, or my left, is Kitten Meow. So I have 2 super cute, adorable micro minis, and these are amazing because they don't get any larger than a quarter. So if you're cramped for space, you can get micro minis. You can have a lot more. So just to show you, this is a standard, by the way. It's just a baby. Micro mini standard. Look at that. Huge difference, I know. But I'm just showing you, like, these literally won't get larger than a quarter. So these are the only micro minis that I have that have a rosette. Like I said, I have many different propagations, and one of them is just going to be beautiful. So variegation is kind of nice. I know I said the thing I said, but if you're not going to have tons of blooms, like, it's kind of nice just to have a plant with pretty leaves because the variegation is there always. Blooms are not always there. But I'm hoping that I can get this one to bloom in 2023. I've definitely had some serious gains with it only having had 2 leaves. But yeah, there's just roots growing all over the sides of it. I mean, it's just kind of crazy to watch them trail on top of the soil because I've honestly not really been able to see that with some of these other ones. So these are all of my African violets. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be sure to see you next time. Goodbye.